Hey folks, welcome to another episode of All Things Neurodivergent. And today we're going to talk about friendship and social energy in neurodivergent life. So, many neurodivergent people deeply value connection, but we struggle to maintain friendships in ways that often align with neurotypical expectations. So, today we're going to explore how ADHD, autism, and AuDHD shape social energy, communication styles, boundaries, and kind of the unique ways that neurodivergent folks can build meaningful relationships. So, why social energy works differently for neurodivergent brains? Well, socializing uses a lot of cognitive and sensory resources. So, those kind of like subtle social cues, those things take a lot of energy. They don't come naturally to a lot of us. Um, Often, when we are engaging with people, it can be very sensory heavy, going to the club, going to the bar, even just large social gatherings. There is often a lot of noise, multiple conversations, uh, lots of lights, just a lot that goes on that can really impact kind of our sensory issues. Also, masking, tracking social cues, regulating emotions, these all drain energy very, very quickly. And so if you're around people that don't know that you're neurodivergent, or maybe even know that you are, but you don't feel comfortable kind of putting it out there or acting kind of neurodivergently, um, it can be really difficult. And you feel like I must kind of present, I must put on the mask. Um, And even when people tell you that you don't, when you've spent years, sometimes decades masking, it just becomes automatic. You do it without even thinking, even when you're in a situation where you may not have to, that people are affirming and supportive, but you're so used to doing it because you're afraid of being rejected or being dismissed or ignored. And so you just continue to put on that mask. Neurodivergent folks often need longer to recharge. So if I go to a social event, as much as I often do have fun, it takes a lot for me to kind of recharge from that. This is the difference between somebody who is an introvert versus an extrovert. Because people, this kind of drives me insane. People talk about, like, oh, I like being around people, therefore I'm an extrovert, and I don't like being around people, or I don't like interact with people, so I'm an introvert. And really, what extroversion and introversion mean is it's about energy. So if you're somebody who um, finds spending time with other people to be a draining activity, that means that you're an introvert. And if you're somebody who gets energy from spending time around people, then you're an extrovert. Or you can be an ambivert, like I am, and a lot of people are, where some people you recharge from being around them, and others you get drained. I used to always think I was an extrovert because I would spend time around people and I absolutely love spending time with people, and it would really kind of like juice me up. But then when I started, in social work and really kind of doing therapy and really doing that heavy emotional work, I found that I actually need a lot of time by myself to recharge because I was expending that emotional energy a lot more. So, thing is, you can be somebody who's an introvert who really likes being around people, enjoys spending time with people, but finds it very, very tiring, right? And the thing is, our social battery varies wildly, day to day, sometimes hour to hour. It's not really a reliable or a linear resource. It's sometimes we agree to activities or outings when we're kind of in a higher energy place and think like, oh yeah, that'd be great. And then when the actual event comes, it's like, oh God, I would rather do anything than this. Not because you don't like the people or don't want to go to the event, but just because you're down here. And when you made it, you're up here, right? So that's something to keep in mind, is sometimes making plans can be helpful. Sometimes it's helpful if things are kind of more spur of the moment. or if you're willing to kind of be flexible and, instead of kind of going to something that's maybe a lot of people, or there's like you're around a lot of people, so instead of like going to the mall or something, it's like, well, maybe we can hang out and go to a quieter coffee shop or a bookstore, or somewhere where there's less things to kind of tire me out because I'm already kind of in that low area, right? Or when the weather is nicer than it is right now, going for a walk outside, right? Things like that. So here are some factors that can shape neurodivergent friendships. One is executive dysfunction. So that can often mean difficulty initiating plans or keeping in touch. It can be, kind of the follow through. It can be difficulty with, planning something. Sometimes it can even be difficulty in keeping up your side of things. So it's like, hey, you're going to bring this, you're going to bring this, you're going to bring this. The neurodivergent person might struggle or say things do kind of change last minute. Sometimes for autistic folks or AuDHD, that can be really hard to kind of just pivot. Another one is kind of like the whole object permanence issue. So, and I know when I say object permanence, I don't love that term, but it's kind of what's known. And so it's like, the concept of out of sight, out of mind. And I mean, it's not that we know, it's not like people disappear from our mind and we think like, oh, you don't exist. Like we're not babies. We know that people exist, but it's just, if you're not in front of us, if we're not interacting with you, something doesn't come up to kind of remind us, it's a lot harder for us to kind of keep you in front of mind. Right. So that can really be a big issue in terms of reaching out, initiating. Another one is sensory sensitivities, right? Certain environments limit the social option. So it's like, if you're wanting to, go to a bar, I may not want to, right? Because it's loud, it's often late, I'm often tired. There's just so many people, so much going on. Just things like that, right? Going to the mall, especially around the holidays. Oh my God, like brutal. I mean, not as bad as it was when I was younger. Obviously, the technology to shop online is definitely helped reduce, mall crowds. But I mean, it's still there, still a thing, right? RSD, we've talked about that before, kind of like rejection sensitive dysphoria, so the fear of rejection. One can make reaching out seem really risky. I've definitely had that where I've been trying. I had a friend I was trying to make plans for a couple months, and just every time it just wouldn't work, and I was getting some serious RSD. It was like, does this person even like me? Are they just trying to make excuses? I mean, I knew logically that it wasn't, but that's how it felt. And it was really hard to push back against that. And then we finally met. We're able to meet up. I explained this to them, and they were like, "No, God, no! Like I really wanted to. It's just things have been crazy." And I was like, I understood that, but emotionally, that was very hard. I really, really kind of had to try and push back against that. So, and also that, paired with the kind of whole object permanence thing, it's like, well, I haven't spoken to you in weeks or sometimes months. It's like, how are you going to react if I just reach out, or like you send me a text or something and I didn't respond to it, and then I see it and it's been like 2 weeks. It's like, oh Jesus, like, oh, I can't respond now. It's be so late, and then that just creates the shame spiral, and then it just kind of goes longer and longer, and it just gets bigger and bigger. It doesn't have to, but that's a lot of times how our brain works, unfortunately. Another one is kind of the hyper focus periods. So sometimes friendships may kind of fluctuate with energy or interest. I mean, again, this is something that everybody can struggle with, everybody kind of falls into, but when you're neurodivergent, it's so much more often, right? You can really fixate on kind of a particular friend for a really long time, really intensely, and other relationships may fall off. You get into a new relationship, the intensity of it, it's not unusual to kind of have your friendships fall off. So just kind of thinking of things like that, to be mindful of things like that. Some friendship behaviors that you might see. like we talked about, was kind of those long gaps in communication. The thing is, when it does pick up, it's like no time has passed. It could be weeks, it could be months, and it's like you talk like you just talked yesterday, right? So um, it's not like we often don't feel like we need to like make up. It's just like, well, we kind of picked up where we left off, right? And if you're not used to that, that can be really disorienting. It can be like maybe you're trying to ignore that it's been so long, or you feeling like it didn't matter. And the person definitely felt the loss, the missing. But when you see them, it's like you just kind of pick right back up. Um, Deep, meaningful connections often form very quickly. Um, and this is something that is really hard for neurodivergent folks because, when we attach to people, we do tend to attach pretty quickly and pretty intensely. And for a lot of us, we've been told, oh, you're too intense, you're too much, a lot in our lives. And so, as much as, we may want to have that deep connection, there's also often a lot of fear there, right? Again, it kind of goes back to the RSD. And so, if you have somebody who's neurodivergent and, you're like, wow, this person's really intense, um, this is something that's kind of common with a lot of us. It's how I've been in most of my relationships, whether they're friendships, romantic relationships. I tend to attach really, really quickly. And that has burned me a lot. But it has also given me some really great and deep friendships. So, something to think about. I mean, like unofficially proposed to my wife 6 weeks into dating, and we've been married for 15 years. So, there's there good things can come of it. Good things can come from it. Um, we often prefer kind of smaller, quieter gatherings or kind of like large social events. I do networking for my job, and honestly, I hate it so much. Not because I don't like networking. I like connecting and talking with people, and and really kind of getting into the nitty gritty of what we do and how we can help each other. But networking events are just sensory and just masking hell. It takes a lot out of me. Um, and so it's often the same thing. I just went to a um, kind of a holiday party that was put on by the research parks where I'm located, and it was nice. It was a nice to do, but there was a lot of people, and there was a lot of like little groups, and I talked to one person, and just kind of everybody was paired off, and it just like, oh, this is horrible. Again, me not because of the research parks. Um, we often prefer things like parallel play or kind of like low pressure hangout. So you know you do your thing, I do my thing, or playing a board game together, um, you know, playing video games, watching a show together, things like that, right? That can be really helpful. Um, and I know I talked about kind of like checking in kind of last minute. And here's the thing is then this is why it's difficult because, again, here's the contradiction. For some neurodivergent folks, doing things last minute can actually be really helpful, and they're like, yeah, great, like checking with me, like, oh yeah, like I actually have like a lot of energy, I'm good to go, or yeah, no, just it's a really low energy, low mood day, I'm not down for it. um but for some people, kind of like last minute cancellations, it can be like woo, and others are like, shit, I had my heart and my mind set on this and now it's not happening and I don't know what to do, and it throws off my whole routine. um so just something to keep in mind. It's like just because something works for one neurodivergent person doesn't mean it's going to work for somebody else. And even with me, sometimes, kind of last minute cancellations or changes, I'm totally fine. I can roll with the flow. Other times I'm like, it just sends me into a spiral. So there is no hard and fast rules, right? These are just things to kind of, think about. And kind of on the opposite side, on our side is, canceling plans when overwhelmed. Even with people that we love, that we want to see. Like there's times where I'm like, I would love to see somebody, but I'm just so overwhelmed. And I can't. And it's not I don't want to see you. It's more of I can't see you. So it's like, we don't like being canceled on last minute, but then, we do it. Right. So that's kind of that back and forth. Right. Sometimes we can be a tad contradictory. Right. Um, So, how is neurodivergent social style often misinterpreted? Well, as I just said, we're often seen as flaky when often we're overwhelmed or energy depleted or we're really bad at time management. Like growing up, my mom was just flaky as shit. And I never understood it. And always, as a child, always pissed me off. My mom would be super late to stuff and I'd be like, God, you're so flaky. I can't rely on you. And now, as an adult, realizing that she had ADHD, which was undiagnosed and untreated, it makes a lot more sense, right? The constant running late, the just 10,000 interests, the things like that. And so I saw her as flaky, and now as an adult, I have more kind of compassion and awareness for what she was going through. Because again, if you don't know, sometimes that's how you see yourself, and that's how others see you, and it's just kind of is this label that gets put on you, right? We're often viewed as not trying hard enough when really it's executive functioning. I mean, as neurodivergent folks, we try so hard all the time. And if we can't do something, it's often not because we don't want to. We often do want to, very much so. But we can't for a variety of reasons. Or we do, but maybe not to the level that others around us are able to. And so it's like, oh, well, if you just try harder, you just focus more, like just push through. And we're operating at double capacity just to try and get to half very, very often. We're often labeled as or misread as disinterested when it could be nervousness or uncertainty about cues. It can be our affect is just flat. I know for myself when I'm overwhelmed or overstimulated, my affect goes very flat. My tone of voice, my face, I can be completely calm and just have kind of a blank expression, and people will be like, "Are you okay?" Like I look like I want to murder you. It's yeah, my RBF, my resting bitch face is phenomenal. And so somebody's talking, if I'm not animated, they can read that as disinterest, and it's not. I am interested, or I might be on my phone, and they're like, "Oh, you're not paying attention." I'm like, I'm tired, and honestly, in order for me to kind of engage in this conversation, I need to do something, whether it's being on my phone or doodling or coloring, but something, right? It's not as, it's not that I'm not interested. I am. Maybe I'm just overwhelmed. And this is a way for me to kind of like soothe myself, right? We're often seen as I said before, we're often seen as very intense, right? So kind of when our passion and authenticity kind of shows up really strongly, we tend to, kind of connect with people really quickly, or we get very passionate about when we're talking about something. So it can be seen as, like we're monopolizing the conversation. And fair enough, we probably are, but not because we think that, we're the only ones worth talking about, or we're the only ones that have anything interesting to say. It's just we get so passionate about what we're talking about, we just go kind of on and on and on and on. There was a situation. There was an event. Last year in the summer, or wait, it was last year. It was this year. It was just before summer. And we were going to a school event that my daughter was having. It was outside, and I was exhausted. I had a long day that day, and I went, and I was just fried. And you could see it. I don't mask my emotions. I'm very, very open. What you see is what you get. And we were talking to people, and I was just like really low energy. And then we started talking about neurodivergence, of course, and I just lit up. I just went from no energy to like super like just engaged, and and again, not because I didn't want to be there to support my daughter and to kind of be involved in her school, but I was so tired. But then when we started talking about something that I'm really passionate about, that I was just kind of one of my special interests, I just whoop, energy went right up, right? So that can be a tad disconcerting to people as well. Something else is ghosting is often shut down, burnout, shame, It's not indifference. It's not, that we're like, oh, you don't matter. Often it's deeply rooted in shame. We're actually often very, very ashamed of ghosting because we know what it feels like to be ghosted a lot of the time. I know what it feels like, and it sucks. Um, so when we do ghost people, it usually comes from a place um, I don't have the energy for this, or RSD of like if I say something, I'm worried about what the reaction is going to be, or I'm just too burnt out, which then kind of again leads to the shame, which then kind of magnifies the feelings and just kind of feeds it on itself, right? Um, so what are some you know things that we value in friendship? So low pressure connection and flexible communication. So I will send memes, I will text, sometimes I call people. I like doing video calls, not a big phone person. It's weird. Sometimes I am, sometimes I'm not. That's the thing. Um, you know, just I have a friend of mine who we met in university. Right from the get go, she told me I'm horrible with reaching out to people. She's like, I don't initiate. She's like, I do this with everyone. And I was like, oh, okay. So she's like, if you're going to be my friend, just keep that in mind and know that I do this with literally everyone. I was like, all right. And so knowing that, it's like we don't talk a lot, but when we do, it's great. We have a great conversation. But it is something that she was very upfront about, and I really appreciated that. Right. And so to kind of go with that is, friends who don't kind of keep score or expect constant updates, or that, we're not the only ones reaching out, that other people reach out. Because that's something that I've experienced a lot of my life is I'm often the one that reaches out like 98% of the time with my friends. And that it hurts because it feels like I'm the only one that really cares and puts energy into the relationship. And that can be really hurtful. So not necessarily constant updates, but just checking in once in a while, right? And again, that's me. That's not everyone. So really, kind of just direct communication, right? So emotional honesty, directness, and clear communication. I don't do like suggestions, hints. That's. I mean, it's not a lot of us. We don't really like it. We don't really see it, or when we do see it, we don't fucking understand it. As an example, the family was at Walt Disney World a few years ago, and I was in the hot tub, and everybody else was in the pool. I like hot tubs. I like hot water, and I was talking to this couple, and I was just yapping away. And our friends that we were with, one of them was like, "Hey, come join us in the pool." I was like, "No, I'm good. I'm gonna stay here." And then, my wife was like, come join us in the pool. And I was like, well, the wife is calling me, so I got to go. So I go over and they're like, dude, did you not see, like, that couple did not want to talk to you? And it's like, no. They're like, yeah, like the looks they were giving each other. I was like, so somehow that is less rude than just saying, hey, man, not really interested in having a conversation. Just kind of want to chill. Like, that would be considered rude. But what they did wasn't. Like, I don't understand that. Right. So, just kind of being very clear about what your needs are. And it goes both ways. People who accept cancellations without guilt trips, without trying to make you feel bad, just be like, yeah, no, I get it. It sucks. I mean, again, if it keeps happening and happening and happening, they're like having a conversation, but that's not a guilt trip. That's saying like, hey, I've noticed that, you seem to be canceling a lot. Is everything okay? Like, I understand that, you have low energy, things change, but if this is happening all the time, like we got to figure something out because that's not fair to me either. Right. So, relationships where we don't have to mask, what that looks like, helping us to unmask and being okay when we do, um, and being patient with us as we figure this out, because for a lot of us, this is something we've been navigating our entire lives, something we deal with our entire lives. Um, and we often really appreciate kind of shared interests or routines or parallel activities. Um, you know, and again, these are things again that everyone would really appreciate. It just kind of takes it to the next level. So, how to support neurodivergent social energy. Giving advance notice for plans can be really helpful. Offering choices like, as I said, quiet cafe, a walk, at home hangout, kind of like, bringing simming stuff, normalizing rescheduling without shame, right? We're all super busy. Using text or voice notes. So asynchronous communication, so basically where it doesn't require kind of an instantaneous response, can reduce demand. Or if somebody wants kind of that, that back and forth, being open to that. But again, it's just really communicating. This is what I prefer. This is what I prefer. Okay, if it's not matching, how do we figure it out? Sometimes we may do your way. Sometimes we may do my way, right? So really just trying to kind of encourage neurodivergent friendly social norms. So co-working, body doubling, silent hangouts or quiet hangouts, right? Things like that. And really a lot of this comes down to communication, because if you've met one neurodivergent person, you've met one neurodivergent person. And what one person needs may not be what somebody else needs. So really, if you have more than one neurodivergent friend, really just trying to kind of figure out, well, what does this person need? Right, and not expecting that, well, because I did this with this person, therefore, I should be able to do this with this person, because you may not, or there may be elements of it, right? So what are some strategies for neurodivergent folks to maintain friendships? Well, one is using reminders, or kind of like setting up automation to stay in touch if it's not something that kind of comes naturally to you. I know it can feel weird and inauthentic, but it's not. It's a strategy. It's a tool, right? Communication, like talking about your energy levels openly, right? Like, hey, I'd love to hang out. Honestly, I really would, but I'm so low energy right now, or I've got a migraine, or I'll always deal with like chronic pain, things like that, right? So suggesting kind of low demand, predictable kind of activities or rituals, and being like, hey, I'm really low energy, so I can't do this thing, but maybe we can do this, right? Or, hey, I'm not able to do this now, but maybe we can schedule for like in a couple of days. Pacing social events to prevent burnout. So kind of like not expecting kind of things to just go boom, right? But rather kind of like keeping it a nice pace. Just trying to practice small, honest scripts, right? I want to connect. I need a lower energy activity, right? I still care about you, even though I don't reach out a whole lot, or it may take me a while to respond, but it's not because I don't care. I very much do, right? So, let's try and reframe, some of these social needs. Needing downtime isn't antisocial. It's nervous system maintenance. It's being mindful of what your mind, body, soul, energy need, right? Friendship doesn't have to look like constant contact to be meaningful. And, or if it does look like constant contact, that also is not necessarily a bad thing if that's what you're open to, right? Or what does contact look like, right? Authentic connection is really at the root of it. What does authentic connection look like? Because it's going to be different for everyone, right? So the biggest thing to kind of really take from this is that neurodivergent relationship styles are valid, no matter what it looks like. They're often very, very deep, requiring a lot of intensity and connection. It can require authenticity and emotional connection and emotional openness, and a willingness to communicate, and try not to take things personally when people aren't able to hang out the way that you would like them to. So this was kind of a brief rundown of neurodivergence and friendships, and I hope this was helpful. It's often, as neurodivergent people, it can often be hard to make or keep friendships. So just know that if this is something that you're struggling with, you're not alone. A lot of us have experienced it, and there are people out there that do like you and do love you for who you are, and you don't have to mask and pretend to be something else. I'm not saying it's easy, but it is possible. So until next time, thank you all. Miigwech. I'll see you next week. Oh, right. And please follow, subscribe to all the channels if you want to keep seeing more of this content. Miigwech.